Gordon Smiley was the 39th driver to lose his life at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. His fatal crash has become his lasting legacy. But Smiley was a complex racer who needs to be better understood. He was a midwestern SCCA star who rose to international success. Known as an aggressive driver on the track, Smiley had a very modern understanding that public relations and personal sponsorship could advance a driver's career just as much as talent could. And he was someone who went to Indianapolis chasing Formula One goals. It's for those reasons and more that Gordon Smiley's career deserves a closer look. Gordon Smiley was born in Omaha, Nebraska in April 1946. His father, Gene, was an amateur sports car racer who drove Austin Healey's in events across the Midwest. Gordon began his racing career in SCCA in the late 1960s. An incredibly talented driver, success came easily. In 1970, Smiley drove a Triumph Spitfire to a divisional championship. In 71, he won a Formula Ford championship. And in 72, he claimed a Formula B title. In total, Gordon won 4 SCCA championships in the early 70s. Smiley also earned a degree in journalism from the University of Nebraska, and as he advanced as a racer, he realized that he'd have to promote his own career. He would need to appeal directly to sponsors and attract coverage in the media. To learn this, Gordon took night classes with the University of Kansas to educate himself in public relations and marketing. Earning his education in these fields was Smiley's attempt to advance his racing career without throwing money around. He was from a middle-class background and didn't have the funds to buy spots on teams.
Mike Hansen, Bill Middleton, and Gordon Smiley ended their long seasons here in the Georgia mud.
To further make himself more appealing to car owners, Smiley lied and told people he was 3 years younger than he actually was. And so successful was he in concealing this fact that the information didn't come out until after his death at Indianapolis. And once it did, it negatively affected insurance payments for fellow IndyCar drivers.
And that messed up all of the actualities, and the Championship Drivers Association had a special rate based on all the information that was pumped in, and because it turned out to be erroneous information, it dropped. There was something to do with the fact that I think it dropped the value of all of their policies, so the legacy lived on. But
despite his success in SCCA, Smiley's goal was to race in Formula One. In 1974, he sold all his belongings and moved to England, looking to start his international career. Still without any money to buy his way into the sport, Smiley began introducing himself to team owners and bars and asking to drive their cars. After a month of trying, he landed a seat in Formula Ford. He won the first 5 races he entered and won 2 championships in 1974. After a year in England, he returned to the U.S. and settled in Texas. Smiley drove sporadically in Can-Am, Super V, and raced briefly in Formula Atlantic against Gilles Villeneuve and Bobby Rahal. For the next few years, Gordon took office management and sales jobs while he tried to advance his career. In 1978, he married his wife Barbara. Of all things, it was a brief meeting with a golf legend that gave Gordon the business plan he needed. In the late 70s, Tom Watson told Smiley how young golfers would get financial investors to support their career in exchange for a share of the winnings. Smiley adapted this method to auto racing and found Dave Anderson of Lincoln, Nebraska, who provided a moderate financial boost to get Gordon's career to the next level. Now, in 1979, there were 2 different series that raced Formula One cars, the Grand Prix World Championship that had been won by Mario Andretti the year before, and the Aurora British Formula One Championship. The Aurora Series was a championship for obsolete year-old Formula One cars that raced mainly in the United Kingdom. Smiley returned to England and got a ride in that series with Melchester Racing. And so in 1979, there were only 2 Americans that raced Formula One cars, Mario Andretti and Gordon Smiley. Gordon was joined at Melchester Racing by Desiree Wilson, a 25-year-old from South Africa. Wilson eventually won in the Aurora Series in 1980 and remains the only woman to win a Formula One race of any kind. While Smiley and Wilson became close friends, Gordon's relationship with Melchester co-owner Brian Kreisky was terrible and only got worse as the season progressed. The car handled poorly, and Gordon could finish no better than 4th. At a race in the Netherlands in early June, Gordon's time at Melchester came to a violent end. Kreisky arranged to have Smiley's passport stolen to further antagonize him. When confronted, the two came to blows, and Kreisky struck Smiley with an iron bar. He never drove for the team again. Gordon was quickly hired by the John Surtees team to finish the year.
Beginning to get it together in car racing, but he made a bit of a mistake there.
And see the way Gordon Smiley's challenging and Agostini off.
And I would think if anything, Smiley was having a little bit of a stab, but at the same time Agostini was turning into the corner well and early, but in an attempt to protect his position.
With a more comfortable car, Smiley performed much better. In the season-ending race at Silverstone, in rainy conditions, Smiley drove away from the field and scored an impressive victory.
The end of the Hanger Straight, and Smiley is challenging. Smiley has taken second place from Keegan up to 165 miles an hour, and the lead is going to change. Smiley is ahead. Gordon Smiley goes through. Gordon Smiley the leader, and already Keegan has followed him through into second place as they come up into the chicane for the first time. It's very wet. They're on dry weather tyres, but Smiley leads, and Gordon Smiley wins his first Aurora race. Both hands off the wheel, a delighted Gordon Smiley from Nebraska.
At the end of 1979, Smiley faced a crossroads. He claimed that two Formula One World Championship teams offered him tests in their cars. But without any serious offers, Gordon believed he needed to bolster his resume. Mario Andretti became a world champion after winning an IndyCar. In 1980, it looked like Rick Mears was on the verge of landing a Formula One ride with Brabham. With F1 still Smiley's goal, he saw IndyCar as a stepping stone to get there. After working with Mears' agent, Smiley was hired by the Pat Patrick team to race a part-time schedule in IndyCar. Gordon made his IndyCar debut at Ontario in April 1980, starting 13th and finishing 6th. 1 month later, Smiley competed in his first Indianapolis 500. Right from the beginning, he stood out from the Indy regulars. Unlike others, he repeatedly went to the media center to make himself available for interviews. In addition, his flashy uniforms were different than everyone else's.
Very flamboyant. It was saltwater rides again. Very colorful uniforms, which he had, they were tailored and all this kind of thing. And I think he probably had more signage on him than any driver had had, because, this was just right after the era where typically you'd wear a henchman uniform, right, with just a little logo on the sleeve and then maybe your name. But Smiley had the multicolored uniform with signage all over it.
Gordon's Indy attempt came together late. He first hit the track on the final day of rookie orientation. After quickly passing his rookie test, Smiley asserted himself as one of the fastest cars. After rain canceled qualifying on Saturday, Smiley made the field on the final day of time trials with an average speed of 186.8 miles per hour. It was the 9th fastest speed, but Gordon would start 20th since his run came on the final day of qualifying. He was the second fastest rookie in the field, behind only Tim Richmond.
In the middle of row 7, number 70, Gordon Smiley, and on the outside, the veteran George Snyder, number 16.
In his first 500, Smiley was running 5th when he lost a turbocharger.
We're back in Indianapolis, and we've got a fire in this car in the pits. Number 70, Gordon Smiley.
In fact, they're trying to get the driver right now. He's trying to get him outside now because...
Well, you can't see in alcohol.
In alcohol, you do not see fire, and you only feel it when it's too late.
After the race, he was very critical of the aggression shown by other drivers. Gordon ran only one more race that year at Michigan, crashing out of the race while running in the top 5. Smiley began 1981 driving a Porsche 935 at the 24 Hours of Daytona. The car he shared with John Paul, and John Paul Jr. qualified 5th, but retired after only a few hours. Once again, Smiley raced for Pat Patrick in the Indy 500. After a strong run in 1980, Smiley came to the Speedway thinking that oval racing was easy, and this year his confident attitude didn't help him make friends.
Anyway, he was quite personable the first year. The second year, honestly, was a little harder to get along with. didn't quite hit it off with everybody, because when he came back for the second year, he'd sort of developed a bit of an attitude and thought he was Mr. Veteran Driver, and really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Smiley ended up authoring the first incident of the month in practice. Coming off turn 4 at full speed, he cut a right rear tire and spun down the front stretch. He escaped with no damage. The three-car Patrick Racing team of Smiley, Gordon, Johncock, and Mario Andretti was very competitive in 1981. Johncock and Andretti were some of the favorites to win, while Smiley promised to be strong as well. With a speed of 192.9 miles per hour, Smiley qualified 8th.
It's May 24th, 1981. The place, the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's race day in Indianapolis.
There is the front row, Bobby Unser, Mike Mosley, and A.J. Foyt. Gordon Smiley of Garland, Texas, made the race last year, but this time returns in a much better starting position in his car number 60 of the Patrick team. There's the green, and they're racing in Indianapolis into the first turn.
When the race began, Smiley drove to the front.
After 50 laps, the leader was Tom Sneva in car number 2. In second place, car number 60, Gordon Smiley.
Okay, well, it's still Smiley in car number 60, just ahead of Rick Mears in car number 6. Of course, Rick Mears is a previous winner, but he's actually 3 years younger than Gordon Smiley. Still very young as far as this sport of race driving goes. And there's the move, coming down low.
That's a slingshot, you'd like to call it, and he certainly closed the door firmly, and Gordon Smiley.
As Tom Sneva stalled and Rick Mears caught fire, Smiley inherited the lead for one lap before pitting.
Gordon Smiley wants service right now.
For almost all of the race, Smiley ran in the top 5. Unfortunately, he was taken out in a wreck shortly after a restart on lap 142. Exiting turn 3, Tony Bettenhausen Jr. hit Smiley in the right rear and spun Gordon into the wall.
Behind another car hits the wall right in front of me. A car is into the wall right in front of me. And it is Gordon Smiley in number 60. Smiley came in contact with the wall going into turn number 4. He has stopped right in front of me. There is damage to the left side of the race car, but Gordon appears to be okay.
No sign of fire. He does not seem to be frantically moving about, although he is moving.
Angry with the way his race ended, Smiley complained about Bettenhausen to all who would listen, and nearly got attacked because of it.
Brother Gary got to hear about that, and he didn't particularly care for Smiley because Gary came up the hard way, and Smiley was some road racer that came in, and there was a lot of friction in those days with those types of people, depending on their attitude. But the fact that Gary's younger brother was bad-mouthed internationally, he didn't like that very much, so he went down there to try and have a fight. Well, what happened was, and you know, you need to get the explanation a little bit late, and then what you've said. Tony Bettenhausen had a right front tire going down, and he didn't know that under yellow. And then, of course, when the green comes out and then he goes down into turn 3 at speed, then he's got a heck of a push, manages to save it. He doesn't hit the wall, and now he's trying to get down low to get out of everybody's way and make it back to the pits, and he just happened to clip Smiley.
After losing a guaranteed top 5 finish, Smiley left Indianapolis in 22nd, and with a reputation as an outsider.
He tried hard and loved the Speedway, but he wanted to go Formula One racing and considered that this was just a stop along the way, and not everybody, that didn't sit very well with people as well. When he said, I'm actually here for business reasons, I want to get a reputation so I can go Formula One racing. And now, now that's the way it's done. In those days, he was kind of a pioneer.
For the remainder of 1981, Smiley drove a Camaro in the Trans Am Series, with a best finish of 2nd at Laguna Seca. He ended the year returning to IndyCar for 3 races, with a 10th place finish, his best at Phoenix. Drawing off his journalism skills, Gordon wrote articles for racing magazines as well. For 1982, Smiley was able to expand his sponsorship with Intermedics, a Texas medical company that manufactured pacemakers. Finally, with financial backing, Smiley could race more. He agreed to a schedule in road racing with the Group 44 Jaguar team, finishing 21st overall in the 24 Hours of Daytona. He would race in Trans Am most of the year with sponsorship from Intermedics. In IndyCar, Smiley got a ride with Bob Fletcher's team, driving a new March chassis. The team made their debut at Atlanta on May 1st. Smiley qualified 9th and finished 9th after dropping out with radiator problems. The next race was Indianapolis.
He was a really interesting fellow. I mean, you can say all the right things, but my impression of him was that he was very PR conscious. But it was like he was a different guy each year. There were 3 different Gordon Smileys in 80, 81, and 82. And the 82 one was actually very pleasant. The 81, I don't think he made a whole lot of friends.
For the second straight year, Smiley had the first incident of the month at Indy. On day 2 of practice, he drifted out of the groove and brushed the wall in turn 3 with his right rear wheel. There was no damage, and he made a lap of 190 miles per hour not long after. On day 3 of practice, Smiley turned a lap of 193 miles per hour. On day 4, he hit 195. Now in his third year at Indianapolis, Smiley was a veteran that younger drivers came to for advice. He helped with the rookie tests and advised drivers like Chip Ganassi, Bobby Rahal, and Danny Sullivan. And he was reunited with his friend Desiree Wilson as a teammate at Fletcher Racing. The South African was making her debut at Indianapolis, and although her car was owned by businessman Teddy Yip, it was built and serviced by Smiley's team. Heading into the first weekend of qualifying, Gordon put a lot of pressure on himself to go over 200 miles per hour for his sponsors. He also needed to qualify for Indy on the first weekend, or it would force him to miss the Trans Am race at Road Atlanta the following weekend. A practice session was held on the morning of pole day. 10 cars went over 200 miles per hour. While Rick Mears hit 207, speed charts showed Smiley reached only 193. Qualifying runs began at 11 a.m. By all reports, Gordon thought it was possible for a driver to squeeze extra speed out of a car and reach 200.
He had watched and studied Tom Sneeva and thought, that guy just gets it up for qualifying. And no matter how fast he runs in practice, he's able to take a deep breath and find something else. And just before him, Bobby Unser apparently had that same ability.
And it's a new track record.
And I believe that he thought, you've just got to talk yourself into it. Just when you think you're at adhesion, keep pushing because it'll be okay. Well, it wasn't okay.
Within the first few minutes of qualifying, Rick Mears and Kevin Cogan broke the 200-mile-per-hour mark. Gordon went out at 12:15, and on his final warm-up lap, the car crashed in turn 3. Smiley, just 36, died instantly.